Good evening, namaste. I welcome you all. My name is Surya Soni, and welcome to this weekly Vichar webinar series. Vichar webinar series is an initiative of FIAV, Federation of Indian Association of Victoria. From my last 15 to 16 years of community service, I've experienced there is a lack of people to people connect. Hence, this initiative, which are webinar, where we bring lots of talent from our community, or for that matter, wider Victorians to come on this forum, share their knowledge and wisdom, so that we can collectively build our wisdom and grow together. The idea and intent of this Vichar webinar series is to take the fear out of your interest into new fields. And that's what I request and encourage speakers to give us baby steps. How do we enter into this field? Or how do we learn more about this field? Or how do we enjoy that particular topic? Today, we are very fortunate to hear back from Gayatri today. Welcome, Gayatri ji. Thank you so much for joining us again. Your past webinar on storytelling was mesmerizing. I literally had goosebumps during listening to your webinar there. I highly encourage people to watch that webinar. I think webinar number 10 or something. And with that note, today we are going to hear from Gayatri ji on timeless movement Bharatanatyam today. What is importance and all the story background about Bharatanatyam. Gayatri ji herself is an IT professional and dancer, musician, and also she is the creator of the project called the Katha Project, where she's done lots of storytelling of Indian mythological stories and various storytelling forms. So if you haven't subscribed to the Katha Project, look up on various channels, various media platforms, and you will thoroughly enjoy that the Katha Project storytelling program as well. Before handing over to Gayatri ji, also like to encourage that Gayatri ji is doing next month another event called Vaishnav Janto Stories of Devotion program. It's a solo performance of Bharatanatyam. So whatever you learn today, take it to practice by signing up for that next month's event and enjoy first 10 in Melbourne. The great performance from Gayatri ji for Bharatanatyam and storytelling and expression. So, with that note, welcome you again, Gayatri ji. Thank you so much for joining, and all over to you.
Thank you so much, Suriji. I'd just like to, again, before I start, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on, the Wurundjeri community, and the elders, past, present, and future. And I would also like to thank my own gurus who have taught me everything that I know today and who have shaped me to be the person that I am today. This goes from my mother to my grandmothers and my gurus who have taught me the content that forms the foundation of today's presentation. And my gurus are Dr. Chandrabanu and Ambika Doherty, who have been my gurus over the last 27 years and have shaped me as a person and as an artist. So I give eternal gratitude to them. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen.
Yep, it's visible.
Thank you. So, timeless movement, Bharatanatyam today. To give a little bit of a story about how I became a dancer before I go into the theoretical content, I originally started as a Carnatic singer. And my parents started me in Carnatic singing when I was but 4 years old. And my teacher, my singing teacher of the time, still jokes today that I used to come into class, I used to sing sa, and then I used to stand up and dance, and then I'd sit down and sing pa, and then stand up and dance, and then sa, and then stand up and dance. And so she always said, you do more dancing in a singing class than you do singing. And so I think my parents realized that I was much more of a dancer than I was a singer. And I started my Bharatanatyam training when I was a little bit older than the other students in my class. I was 8 years old, and when I walked into my first class, it was like I was meant to be there. It was something that I felt such a deep connection to. And even today, if you ask me, what do you feel when you dance, is I can honestly say that sometimes I don't even know what I'm feeling because I'm so completely enthralled by the art form and what it does for me. I feel a connection to the higher power. I feel a connection to the art form, and I feel a connection to my gurus and the people around me who have shaped me into the person I am today. And a lot of that is to do with the tradition of the art, but it's also to do with my love of the art form as well. And I think once a dancer, forever a dancer. And so it's my great pleasure today to be able to convey that passion to everyone that's listening today live, but also whoever is logging in to see this webinar later on. Now, the art form itself, if I can, before I go into the depths of it, we'll just quickly go into a few of the topics that I'll be touching on, which is a brief history of Bharatanatyam. I'll talk to you about the Nritta, Nritya, and Natya, the three pillars of Bharatanatyam, what dancers learn over the years. So when a dancer gets up and does a performance, how long does it take to be able to do a performance that looks so easy to an audience member? But what actually goes behind getting to that, getting on stage, not only in your first year, but in the 27th year of dancing? And then I will look at storytelling and expression and the expression through movement. And then something that's a very interesting topic is how is classical art still relevant for the next generation? And how is Bharatanatyam, how does it remain relevant? An ancient art form, which was originally done in the temples, how is it relevant for Gen Alpha, who are spending most of their time on TikTok? And then finally, how classical art adapts to global spaces and the contemporary world. So these are some of the topics I'll be touching on. I know we only, have about 40 minutes, but I'll try and get through as much as I can. And I will, if I don't get back to it, maybe we can do a follow-up session in the future. So, a brief history of Bharatanatyam, and I will keep this very, very brief. It dates back almost 2000 years minimum, and it dates back to the Natya Shastra. And the Natya Shastra is almost an encyclopedia for performing arts in India. And it was written by, and it's attributed to Rishi Bharata. And he wrote the Natya Shastra as almost a framework for how dance, but also not only dance, but how music should be performed. But not only looking at dance and music, but the entire experience of theater itself and things that the four areas that the Natya Shastra actually covers is the Angika, which is the body, and the Vachika, which is the speech and the music that complements the art. And then you've got Aharya, which is very interesting because he also wrote about the costumes and the visual, including how makeup should be done for performers. And finally, I think, and it's the hardest part for dancers and performers to get right, it also covers the sattvika, which is the inner emotion that needs to be understood so that it can be conveyed to audiences. And this Natya Shastra, if you can believe it, was written 2000 years ago. And for this rishi or this saint to have such a deep knowledge of psychology, of arts, and how the arts can affect people and audience members, and what that experience should look like, it actually is quite mind-blowing that it was written 2000 years ago and it is still relevant to artists and performers today. So back in those days, Bharatanatyam was not called Bharatanatyam. It was called Sadir Atam, and it was actually performed by Devadashis. And Devadashis were temple dancers, and these women dedicated their entire life to performing and dancing, but not for the public. That was reserved. The art form was reserved for the temple deities and for royalty. And the Devadashis were, again, like I said, they were considered married to the deities and the gods. And sometimes we look back at women that dance and we may look down upon them, and history writes um, very different visions and views of the women that used to dance. But actually, these Devadashis were considered one of the highest caliber of women that were, given to the temples so that they could dedicate their lives for the gods and the art form. Now, Sadiratam was performed again for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And even now, if you go back to the temples that they were performed in, you can see the sculptures of these dances etched into the temple. If whether you visit Chidambaram Temple, which is the home of Nataraja, which is the Lord of the dance, or even if you go to the Brihadishwar Temple in Tanjavur, you can see the sculptures of these dance forms. You can see the hand gestures and the visual expressions and the poses of this Sadir Atam that was performed within those temple and the sanctum sanctoriums those many hundreds of years ago. And if they were etched into the temple, you can imagine how much respect was given to the art form itself back in those days. But unfortunately, obviously, we know the history of India and how rulers changed, how the demographic changed, how the political landscape changed. And slowly, the art form became less and less prevalent. And eventually, as the Mughal Empire came in, and then eventually the British Empire came in, the art form was actually banned and it was not allowed to be performed any longer, which is it's very, very sad because we lost the Devadashi community completely. And by 1910, no one was actually allowed to perform classical arts and classical dance forms because of the British Empire. So it was many years and a few decades later that Rukmini Devi Arundel, who is considered one of the mothers of reviving the art form again in the early 19 to mid 1930s. And she coined the term Bharatanatyam and was key and instrumental in going back to the roots of the Natya Shastra and going back and bringing up all the history of the dance form and reviving it in the form that we actually know it today. So Rukmini Devi Arundel was key in instrumental in doing that, and she actually started up many of the institutions that teach the art form, not only Bharatanatyam, but also all of the aspects within the Natya Shastra, the theatrical aspects, how to do makeup, how to do set creation, how to do prop creation, how to do the costumes and stitch costumes in institutions like Kalakshetra and Chennai, all of the entire holistic art form is taught, not only the dance, but everything surrounding the experience of Bharatanatyam is actually taught. And from there, so many the Bharatanatyam has exploded into a globally recognized form of dance, and we have there are so many names where you would instantly know. You had Hema Malini, you had Vaijayanti Mala, you had Padmini, who were stalwarts and learnt from Rukmini Devi herself and went on to take the art form not only on the stages where Bharatanatyam audiences were watching, but also into the mainstream media. So many Bharatanatyam performances were made more Bollywood, but the art form was being recognized again and was being revived again and taken to the mainstream public to know that this was rooted in our tradition. And from Rukmini Devi Arundel, my guru's guru, Adyar Lakshman, learnt at Kalakshetra. And my guru, Dr. Chandrabanu, who is a direct disciple of Adyar Lakshman, went to learn from him in the 60s and came to Australia and then started up the Bharataliya Academy as we know it today and has been teaching the art form, not only Bharatanatyam, but also Odissi over the last 50 years. So Bharatanatyam is no longer confined to the temples, but it is now a globally recognized art form that so many thousands of people, both men and women, perform and take such joy in performing. So that's a brief, not so brief history of the art form, but it gives us quite an appreciation of how far and how knowledgeable and how deep the foundations of this art form is. So I originally mentioned in the Natya Shastra that all aspects of dance is covered. And a part of that, and that is actually Bharatanatyam is divided into three pillars: the Nritta, the Nritya, and the Natya. It's almost like a tongue twister. But these are the three pillars of Bharatanatyam that form the basis of the entire art form itself. So, Nritta, which is pure dance, there's no expression, there's no facial expression, there's no emotion conveyed in Nritta, but it is almost like the skeleton, the foundation of the art form itself. It is pure dance, it is all rhythm. And the reason that Nritta is so important is because, like I said, it forms the skeleton. It gives structure to the art form itself. And without that rhythm, the Nritya and the Natya cannot exist. There needs to be a deep understanding of the rhythm. And the rhythm is complex. The rhythm is complex, but it also very, very graceful and very difficult to do. And the rhythmic arrangements of what we call adavus, which are the basic presentation of those rhythms, is done in combinations of 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9, and different combinations of such. So you have the Tishram, which is the 3, the Chatushram, which is the 4, the Khandam, which is the 5, the Mishram, which is the 7, and the Sankirnam, which is the 9. And there's so many different, sometimes easy combinations and sometimes very, very difficult combinations of these rhythms and at various speeds. And like I said, this forms the skeleton or the foundation of the art form itself. And without this rhythm, nothing else can really be achieved. And then we've got the Nritya. The Nritya is the expression of emotions through the face and the body. Now, what does Nritya make up? And it's a deep understanding of the human emotions. And there are, within the Natya Shastra, it said that there are 9 emotions, the Navarasas. And these Navarasas need to be deeply understood in order for Nritya to be expressed. And Nritya is not only to do with the face and expression and emotions like anger and love and disgust. All of these emotions cannot purely be expressed by the face only, but also through the mudras. And these mudras help us, and I will tell later, help us with the dramatic component. But these mudras and the abhinaya on the face come together to express these navarasas and express these navarasas through the Ashtanayikas, which is the 8 heroines. And they help us understand and express those basic human emotions. It's through the use of the eyes, it's through the use of the eyebrows, through the movement of even the lips and the hands and also the feet and any aspect of the body. And within the abhinaya and the mudras, which is your face and your hands, they become the central feature so that you can express these basic human emotions. And I could do an entire 1 hour sessions just on these navarasas. And because there is so much there to explore. And then finally, probably my favorite part of the three pillars is the natya, which is the dramatic storytelling. And this is the depiction of the stories, characters, and emotions. And it is a combination of the Nritta and the Nritya because you need to have a deep understanding of the rhythm and you need to have a deep understanding of human emotion in order to tell the stories. And some of these stories are so known to us. They can range from the Ramayana to the Mahabharata, stories from the Bhagavatam, the Dashavatar. All of these stories that we know and we have heard through many, many generations are brought to life through this Natya. And so these are actually 3 pictures from my Arangetram 17 years ago when I was much, much younger. But you can see that one is the Nritya in the first picture. And so that's just the pure dance form. A lot of it is to do with body control. and having extreme control of the body and having a deep understanding of the rhythm. And then you have the Nritya, where I'm expressing actual jealousy and dismay in this particular picture. And then finally the Natya. If you know the story of the Ramayana, that picture is actually the story of Kaikeyi when she is being about to go and ask that Ram is sent to the forest, and she's plotting that how to ask Dashrath that Ram should be sent to the forest. So these components of Nritta, Nritya, and Natya come together to form the pillars of Bharatanatyam. Now, I'm going to stop there because I know that this is the foundation of the art form. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to take these questions right now. Or if you want to hold on to them till later, that's okay. But I know that I've given a lot of information. If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask me now.
Yeah. Anyone from the audience want to ask question? Neeraj, yeah.
Hmm?
Any question, Neeraj?
Many questions, man.
Yes, please. Please ask.
Very, very, very interesting uh, presentation Gayatri has given. And I just checked through Google. I know Google is not 100% correct, also made by human beings, you know. The British, as you said rightly, banned Bharatanatyam, but mainly as Google tells me, I don't know what is the truth, was because of the Devdasi system and not against Bharatanatyam. So they associated them and they thought maybe it's not a good thing, something of that sort happened, number one. So I'm not challenging it, I've just read it, so I'm speaking. Number two is, you said that um, it is no more confined to the temples. So is that true? I mean, you mean it is now come to the stage? Do you mean that, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So still many people still perform. If you go back to Chidambaram now, which is it's considered the temple for Nataraja himself, the god of the dance. It's no longer just only performed in temples, but now Bharatanatyam is performed in so many stages around the world.
It could be in any function, you know, where it is given respect, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And one last question. Sorry for too much asking, you know, because
Okay,
I curiosity, you know. I like the subject, you
please.
know. Are people of any community allowed to perform Bharatanatyam? That's one.
Fantastic question. So I mentioned that Dr. Chandrabanu is my guru. Dr. Chandrabanu is actually a Malaysian, of Malaysian descent. He is of Muslim. He's a Muslim originally, and he actually moved to India in order to learn Bharatanatyam in the most traditional form. And I think the more that people know about Bharatanatyam and what kind of an impact it can have in their lives, so many people from so many backgrounds learn the art. And it can be performed by anyone, male, female, of any culture, as long as you have an appreciation for these three elements, which is the Nritya, Nritta, Nritya, and Natya. And what else is really important, which is a great question, it leads on to many different things, is that it has to be understood and appreciated that this art form is centered and grounded in the Hindu philosophy and the Hindu religion. And there has to be appreciation for that. These stories, the stories that are depicted, the songs that complement Bharatanatyam are all usually directed towards the Hindu deities. And as long as there is an appreciation for that, anyone from any background can actually come in, learn, and perform.
Okay, okay, okay. So maybe supposing there is a Dalit or a Muslim or a Christian or maybe anybody, you know, they can learn Bharatanatyam, isn't it?
100%. 100%.
If they are ready to do it, you know.
As long as, like I said, as long as there's an appreciation for the art form and the foundations of the art form, why not?
And one last question. This is nothing to do with more embedded in the 21st century. Can Bharatanatyam be, or somebody has experimented, to take modern subjects in Bharatanatyam.
Can I pause on that question? And I've got more content, and I'm
Okay.
going to answer that exact question later in my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
No worries.
Can I ask two quick small questions? I'm conscious of time as well. That can anybody learn it at any age, or it has to be start learning at the early age? Is the I know it's the best, but can if somebody at the later age want to learn, can they still learn at a later age as well? And second question, if I can club it together, is that similar to the singing the rag? There's certain number of rags. I'm not aware of all number of rags, but certain rags are only spoken in the morning, only in the afternoon, or only in the evening. Are there any such similar restrictions or certain movements of the body based on your the biological aspect that certain dance forms should only be done in the morning, afternoon, or evening? Are there any restrictions around there?
Okay, so first question is, can anyone learn it? Yes, absolutely. At any age, you can come in and learn Bharatanatyam. Now, is it going to be as easy as an 8-year-old dancing or a 5-year-old dancing as it is to a 40-year-old dancing? I can attest. I started learning at 8 and I did my Arangetram at 17, and now I'm again performing at 34, and it's a vast difference. It is the body is different, and as long as you are willing to learn and put in the hard work, you can learn at any age. It might be a little bit harder, but absolutely anyone can learn at any age. Now, to your second point, Suriji, which is there any restrictions? My guru has not provided me any indications that there are any restrictions for at what time you can dance what. He'll always say, dance whenever you can dance however you can dance as much as you can. So whether that's in the morning, I know I find it a lot harder to dance in the morning than the evening, but if dance whenever you can, how much ever you can.
Yep. Thank you so much. Please.
No worries.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'll keep going. Again, like I said, I'm conscious of time, but these are the three pillars which the art form is centered around. Now, this is, again, I'm going to delve more into the Natya, which is my favorite part because, as Suriji said, I consider myself a storyteller. I consider myself someone who loves stories and always loves stories in all different forms. And storytelling has been a central feature for all cultures for eons, for millennial. And whether you look back into the cave art, cavemen were conveying stories through etchings in the walls of the caves. And like Neeraj pointed out earlier, the Aboriginal indigenous community conveys story through dance. You have ballet and that has conveyed stories through dance, like Swan Lake. And then you have theater that always conveys stories through dance. And stories are there to convey values of cultures, retell history, and also primarily to entertain. We want our audiences and the people that listen to our stories to be entertained because if you're not entertaining, no one wants to listen. So we always have to ask ourselves, how is my story that I am telling going to be entertaining? And I went through a very detailed description of that in my previous webinar. But now, if we take a look and take those same theories and same concepts and say, well, how is it that I can continue to keep my story captivating without opening my mouth and only using the Angika and my Vachika and the Aharya and my Sattvika? Those four elements, how can I convey stories through movement and still be as compelling as a Godfather, as a Swan Lake, and as a Phantom of the Opera, who have their voices to convey those stories? So I dissected storytelling through movement into three elements. How can we do that better? And one is understanding the plot of the story that you're trying to tell. What happened and what is the story arc? When I look at, and I'm going to take my most favorite piece that I've performed, which is the central item actually of my upcoming performance, which is centers around the Ramayana. Now, if I didn't know the Ramayana, how am I supposed to depict what happened? If I do not know the basic of what happened, why it happened, how can I convey the story to an audience that's sitting in front of me? So the artist, the Bharatanatyam dancer, needs to have a deep understanding of the story, the conflict in the story, the climax of the story, and what happens to the characters and what is their motivation, right? So understanding the plot and being able to use your body to change and be able to convey that story is so important. So no, if someone said, how do I tell this story through movement? The first thing I'll say is, do you know what you're dancing? Do you know what you're trying to convey? And then when you look at the plot itself, you start saying, well, who are the players in this story? Do you know your characters? Who did this story happen to? You have Ram, you have Lakshman, you have Dashrath, Janaka, you have Hanuman, you have Kaikeyi, you have Sita, you have Ravan. Do you know these characters and do you know them deeply and intimately? Do you know why they did what they did? Do you know their motivation? And do you know how you can use those navarasas that are the foundation, the basic human emotions? How can you use those navarasas to convey what these characters went through? So who are the players in this story? What are their individual story arcs? And how is it that you can again use the four elements of your body and your body and your inner understanding of these emotions to actually convey these characters? Now, it's a lot easier when you have 10 dancers on stage and you have 10 characters. But what becomes even more complex is if you have one dancer trying to play 10 characters. How does one switch between the Dashrath, who is so eager to please his wife, to a Kaikeyi, who is manipulating her husband to get what she wants? How do you convey the difference in a Ram, who is in the forest and desperate to find his wife Sita, and a Jatayu, who has been killed as he has tried to save Sita? How do you convey that interaction by one person? And for you to do that, it's again understanding the characters so deeply and intimately that switching between them becomes seamless. You cannot have the character of Dashrata seep into Kaikeyi. The switch needs to be instantaneous. And a dancer who truly understands the story and is very much aware of her body and her emotions is going to be able to do that much better. And finally, I've mentioned emotions. Why did it happen? Why did that story happen? How did it make the characters feel? So going into the plot and the characters themselves. But finally, and probably the most important thing about storytelling is how does it make your audience feel? Now, a lot of people say, I watch Bharatanatyam, but I don't really understand it. And in my opinion, if a dancer cannot convey the story, I think it's if an audience member has left saying it was nice, she looked good, they looked good on stage, but I didn't understand, in my opinion, the dance has failed. I think it's so important to understand how an audience member relates to the what's happening on stage. And if you understand the plot and the characters and the emotions and are aware of your body, you succeed as a dancer if the audience member went away saying, oh my gosh, I wanted to cry when Jatayu was killed. I was so happy when Ravan was killed by Ram. So if an audience member can feel what the characters are feeling, the movement and the storytelling is successful.
Can I ask one quick question? Similar to music, where music has got no language barrier, does Bharatanatyam or this Natya Shastra also has got language is no barrier. So everything should be able to communicate through just through all those navrasas, or is one of the rasas the language element as well?
Well, I don't speak on stage. Dancers don't speak, they don't sing. Their body is the way of communicating. So let's break this down completely and let's just say you're not a dancer and you had to convey to your child that you're angry. How does a child understand the emotion of anger? It's through your face, your eyes, your body tenses up. Suddenly, even without words, the person that's opposite you understands the emotion that you're trying to convey. In the same way, how does a mother convey love? Her body softens, she smiles, her eyes are soft and inviting, and suddenly the child understands that an emotion of love is being conveyed. How does jealousy be conveyed? You almost don't want to look at that person. You can't even look because you can't stand to see what the other person has. You can't look at them. You're angry. But at the same time, you can't show that you're angry and you almost have to have a stiff smile. All of these are basic human emotions. The Navarasas are not actually emotions that we don't know of. All of them are our emotions that humans feel day to day. And we express those with our face, with our body. And that's exactly what dance does. That's exactly what Bharatanatyam does. It is an expression of those emotions and of those stories, but just in a little bit more of a stylized way.
Yep, thank you. One quick more question. I'm very conscious of time, but the question is very deep. If these navrasa, these are intrinsic capability of human beings, why do you need to get trained for it? Should it not be natural to express?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is. You know, um this is why I say that actually everyone can dance. Because, and especially this part of the dance, which is the Natya, everyone should be good at doing Natya because everyone feels these emotions. Now, the difficult part is stylizing those emotions because when you see disgust, when you say disgust, you might go, "Eh," but you can't do that as a dancer. You can't go like that because it's not classical movement. But you can say the disgust is conveyed in a more stylized, it's more contained, it's more controlled. But a good teacher, a good guru will take the students that says, and then slowly refine them and slowly condition the artist as they grow to be able to convey that same emotion, that same basic emotion of disgust in a very stylized, in a very classical, and a very graceful way. So that's why you need the training. The feeling of disgust and emotions, all those navarasas, everyone has it in them. The conditioning and the training that happens is to make that more graceful.
So basically saying everybody can paint, but to make a beautiful artwork, you needed fine strokes and training to make those
That's
beautiful
right.
art form. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
So one quick observation, like not just the feet synchronization and hand gesture, it is mainly focus on the eye movements. So expression through eyes, I think, is the uh, you can say main learning, or the how you can express those stories or expressions. Second thing, like for theater artist, I think this can be a good exercise to learn and get those different moods and the emotions and the expressions. So dance can also help in uh, you know uh, theaters and the acting cases.
100%. So the first one that you said was that it's mostly the eyes. And yes, absolutely. The eyes tell so much of a story. But I'll tell you how it's different. Again, go back to the basic emotion of anger. Um, and but anger can be different. How do I convey the anger of Ravan and the anger of say Vali, who was the monkey king brother of Sugriv, and they had a battle. Ravan and Sugriv both felt emotions of anger. How do I differentiate between that? Yes, I differentiate through my mudras. So this is where my hands play a part. I have Ravan, who is the 10-headed, demon king. I will use my mudras to show who he is, and I will express anger. But then I have Vali, who is also angry, but he's a monkey. So my hand movements become more monkey-like, and I express it very differently. The same anger is expressed. Anger as an emotion is expressed, and the eyes will show that. But my hand movements and mudras also play a part in expressing the characters and the emotion.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you mentioned was for theater, absolutely. Dance and theater, like the Natya Shastra say, go hand in hand.
Hmm.
Back in the day, there were one and the same. But understanding again, the emotions is so critical and crucial for a theater actor. And I've done a lot of theater in my life as well, and I know that how much it helps to have an understanding of dance and spatial awareness of the stage, and also body awareness.
Yeah, because emotions has a wide spectrum, like very minute change on the facial expression can change entire message itself. So yeah, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
MNG, yes, you wanted to ask some question, MNG?
Uh, no, I have seen that is a last Marathi program that is Agnipankh, where Arpita Kavle, she has done an excellent job in that particular drama because it was a drama. So without saying a single word, she was able to express number of things related with that particular drama. And that was a very good experience.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, please continue. Thank you, Gayathri. Yeah.
So what does it take? And as you mentioned, Suriji, how does a dancer get to the ability to do what a dancer does on stage? And like I said originally, it's very easy for us to look at a dancer on stage and say, "Gosh, that's easy." And maybe some people say it's easy, and if a dancer can make a performance look easy, again, they've succeeded. But it does take years and years and years of dedicated effort. And it's years of dedication and it's lifelong learning. I still don't consider myself um, a, a guru or a teacher or at a level where I can stop learning. It is lifelong learning, and I will continue to learn and continue to be a student of the art form. But originally, you start with learning, like I said, the rhythmic movements and the adavus, the skeleton, understanding the hands and the mudras, and being able to coordinate your feet and your hands. And there is a progression. First, you learn only the feet, and then you start adding hands, and then you start adding the complexities of the 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. And then from year 1 and 2, you start going into simple combinations of these adavus and these rhythms and being able to put together the different adavu groups that have been learnt to make small dances and being able to master the rhythm itself. And then we start going into year 3 and 4, where we're starting to combine the musical element. So the musical rags and what we call the jati swaram, which is again a pure dance nritta piece. There's no emotion just yet. And it's being able to take all those complex adavus and make difficult pieces of work. And it will be at various speeds, in first speed, in second speed, in third speed, and all these combinations of adavus to make this jati swaram. And this jati swaram will be in different ragams and different talams as well. And then we go into the tilana, which is finally you're coming into starting to have the actual words or a sahityam, which is where you are expressing a very small, just one line of words and being able to express a level of emotion for a particular deity. And the Tilana is a celebratory dance, again, predominantly a Nritta item, predominantly rhythmic, much more complex than the Jati Swaram, far quicker, and also where we've got the component of the poetry right at the end of a Tilana. Now, as the student goes into their 5th to 7th year of the art form, they have also grown up. They have started to understand that there are emotions. They're probably starting to feel those emotions as a young teenager. So they can start appreciating that there is love, that there is sadness, that there is anger. So if you start turning around and looking at your preteens and your teenagers, you'll start seeing these emotions bubble up. And as these emotions bubble up, the art form also starts to harness them. They say, yes, now take those emotions and put them into your art. And let's start conditioning those feelings and making them classical art forms and expressing them gracefully. And that's where the kirtanams start coming in. The actual dances where you are conveying an emotion, a message. You might not be doing it in a highly dramatic way, in a highly stylized way, but you are starting to express and learning to express those emotions and contain those emotions and be able to present them along with the song that is being sung as the background. And they get more progressively more and more difficult and more nuanced as you go into the higher years. So you're starting to look at more, maybe, usually the higher teenage years, you start performing padams and javalis, which are, you need a little bit more maturity to understand these emotions, where a Naika or a heroine is talking to her lover. Now, maybe we don't experience that in real life, but at that age, we start understanding what those emotions are and how to convey them. And the dancer is starting to understand how to express them gracefully. And so you have the padam. And then you get into the real, the hardest part of the Bharatanatyam training, which is the Varnam. And the Varnam is an extremely long piece, usually anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. And this combines everything that the artist has learned so far, that the dancer has learned. They've learned the adavus, they've learned the fast-paced rhythm, they have learned the expressions, and all of that combined together is used in this Varnam. And that usually is the central item of any performance. So once the dancer is done, usually between 8 to 10 years of training, that's when their guru will usually say, you're ready to perform a margam. And a margam is all of the above. You start with an opening item, usually a convocation piece dedicated to Lord Ganesha. You go through and you do a Jati Swaram and a Kirtanam. You right in the middle is your Varnam. And then usually the second half of the Margam is composed of a Padam and another Kirtanam, and then finally ending the performance with a Tilana, which is a celebratory finale. So that is a Margam, and it takes 10 years to be able to sustain an entire 3-hour performance by one single dancer. And what happens after that? Well, that's up to the dancer themselves. Do they continue their art form? Do they continue their learning? That's up to them. I've been very fortunate to be able to continue learning. So I take the learning deeper and explore those emotions and concepts more and more to refine my art more and more. But I think this is, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time, but I'm going to go through this. Why is Bharatanatyam or any classical art form important for the next generation? And if we look at, well, why, what value does it give? As a consultant, as my professional background, I usually go, well, what problem is it trying to solve? There must be a problem that the art form is trying to solve. And what are today's challenges? Some of today's challenges is that we all have a short attention span. We are overloaded with digital technology. I have got in front of me 2 laptops, an iPad, a phone. All of these are constantly on, and our attention is dragged towards one of these devices throughout the day. We want instant gratification. We've gone from watching 3-hour movies to watching 45-second TikTok reels. We now can't sustain. We want to be able to know what happens immediately. And on a physical side, the obesity epidemic is on the rise. People are more and more unhealthy, and which is leading to mental health crises. People are feeling less and less healthy. So, what is it that we need? And I'm not going to say that Bharatanatyam or a classical art form is the answer to all of these, but let's take the crux of what can solve a lot of these issues. One, we need more resilience in ourselves. We need the ability to face challenges and say, I can push through. I can push through the pain of those challenges. And what Bharatanatyam has always taught me is if I am halfway through a very difficult piece, I don't get to stop. I have to keep going. I don't get to stop and stand still. The music continues. I have to push through that pain and get to the other side. I have to develop that resilience. We need patience. An 8-year-old or a 6-year-old who's just started cannot perform a Varnam. They have to wait 8 years. They have to be good enough. They have to be able enough to be able to do that. And that takes patience. It takes me about 3 hours to get ready. I cannot get ready immediately. It won't look good. If I spend half an hour getting ready, it won't look good. I need the patience and the arm strength to be able to do my own hair, to paint my own face. And I need patience for that. I can't just, and it's done. I need the patience and the skill to be able to do my eyes properly and my hair properly so that it all stays in place. I need an awareness. And what does awareness mean? Not only of myself, the inner awareness of me and my body and what it can do and what my skills are and what my limitations are and what my skills are, but of the dancers next to me. I can't just run across the stage and jump and prance and do whatever I want. If I'm dancing with 5 other people, I need to be aware that there are 4 other people or 5 other people dancing with me. And that awareness of the person next to me is so important. Connection, probably the most important of all. Are you connected with the art form? Do you understand the foundation of the tradition? And that connection is something that grounds people. If we look through history, it's people that don't have a connection to something higher that usually find it so hard to keep their mental health in check. And having that connection to a tradition, to culture, to heritage, to the lineage of your gurus is so important. And it creates a connection with the people around you. My best friends are the girls that I have known since I was 8 years old and have danced with. No matter how long we haven't spoken for, I can still turn around and pick up the phone and call those girls, my dance girls, and I have a connection with them. And sometimes I see these young kids these days and I'm like, you're on your mobile phone and you're texting on WhatsApp, but are you connecting with the person on the other end? How have you formed that connection? And it's through hours of spending time dancing and figuring out the moves and getting scolded by our teachers and, bonding over all of that in class that I have had a connection to the most important people in my life and a connection to my guru who I'll always be so grateful for. And then finally, humility. At the end of the day, I know that this is all so much bigger than me. This art form is so much bigger than me. And I can see that there's so much more to learn. And me is just one speck. And having that humility and being able to see that I am just one tiny piece of the puzzle is so important. And it brings us back and gives us a view that all our problems are actually not that big when we consider the magnitude of what is before us and the art and the opportunity that is before us that we have available to utilize. And so I was thinking about this and why is it so important for the next generation, other than all of these things, is that art evolves with time and dedication. It's you cannot do a masterpiece in 10 minutes. It's not possible. There is no masterpiece of TikTok. It's not possible. You can't do that in 45 seconds. But more importantly, as you spend more and more time and dedication with that art, the artist itself evolves. The artist evolves with that art that they have spent so much time and they've dedicated their life to. So that is what the next generation needs, that time and dedication to be able to evolve and to be able to explore themselves and the tradition is why I think Bharatanatyam is, and any classical art form is so important.
One quick question: should it not also include the storytelling and connection with the audience, or is any of the point covers it already?
Yeah, connection.
Connection.
Connection to that heritage, connection to the audience. When I am on stage, um, again, like I said before earlier, if my audience member walks out of that theater and says, yeah, it was nice, but I didn't really understand, it means they haven't connected. It means that they haven't connected to the message that you are trying to convey as a dancer. So it's so important that I connect, and each audience member should feel like that I am dancing for them. I am telling that story to them. I am conveying that emotion for them. And that's when a dancer is truly successful and is able to portray that art in its true form.
Is it true? I'm jumping the gun here, but Neeraj might be asking question as well. Is it true that the art form can be so advanced and evolved that it can literally mesmerize the audience in true form?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to ever assume that I am capable of something like that. It would be my greatest honor to be able to do that for audiences. But I know I have watched my own guru perform. I have watched so many artists perform, and I have walked out with tears in my eyes because they are so beautiful. I've watched Odyssey dances that have brought me so much emotion, and that's not an art form that I know or understand. That's not a dance that I can get up and perform. Yet the dancer was so good that I was feeling the emotions that they were conveying, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I think 100% the art can mesmerize people so much so that they don't even realize time has passed.
Yep.
Thank you, Neeraj. Over to you. Yeah. Any question, Neeraj?
Yeah, I was asking that question, very small question. Can a modern story be embedded in Bharatanatyam?
Yeah, great question. And this is quite a controversial question because a lot of people look at the music that is used for Bharatanatyam and they say, well, it's Carnatic music. Carnatic music is Carnatic music, and it's been there for years and years and years and hundreds of years and thousands of years. And how can you possibly do anything else but convey stories of Krishna, Rama, Hanuman, Parvati, Devi? And agreed. Um, Creativity happens at the fringes of discipline. And what that means to me is that any artist, and this applies to all art, you must have a very deep, like I said, a very deep appreciation for the foundations of the art form. Whatever art form that you're doing, whether it's painting, whether it's dance, whether it's Bharatanatyam, whether it's ballet, you must have such a deep appreciation of the foundation, the classical structure of that given art. Once you have a deep appreciation for that and that foundation is second nature to you, then only can we start looking outside and saying, well, how can I now make it more relevant? How can I now innovate? If I try to innovate and do ballet and say, well, I'm going to convey the story of Krishna through ballet, it's not going to come out right because I myself do not know ballet. How can I innovate with ballet into stories of Krishna when I don't know the traditional expression of that art form? So, innovation happens at the fringes of discipline. So, once I'm extremely disciplined in that art form, I can start exploring more. And it has been done. It is controversial, but it has been done. And an example of that is a few years ago, Dr. Chandravanu put together a production called Manushi, which was centered around the female stories. And we did mostly dances about Devi and was exploring different forms of Devi herself. But the main item, the Varnam, was actually a song that was written in English with a Carnatic rag, and the story was on Malala. And if everyone knows Malala, she was an Afghani girl who was actually shot and then went over to the UK to continue her education and is an advocate for female education. Now, is that story, is that a controversial piece? 100%. Was it well received? It was well received, but lots of people had lots of questions. But then I say, is art art if people don't have questions? If people question and challenge, some may like it, some may don't. Some people love a Picasso, some people hate a Picasso, but people are talking about Picasso. But at the root of it, there is also a true appreciation for Bharatanatyam itself. That entire production was based on Bharatanatyam and the foundations of Nritta, Nritya, and Natya. And there was a lot of, it was predominantly a dedication to Devi, but this piece was something to challenge the audience. It was an innovation at the fringes of that discipline that helped make it more relevant. What was that female experience in the modern day? So I think it is extremely important that innovation does happen, but one has to be careful. Innovation cannot be for innovation's sake. It must be rooted in something that adds value, but can always go back to something that is traditional and has appreciation for the foundations.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So I think that sort of covers this particular slide, and I think I've talked about it enough, is that when we talk about tradition and innovation, it is this very delicate balance of spirituality and religion and cultural heritage of Bharatanatyam, but also how is it that we make it relevant, and how is it that we keep it exciting and entertaining. Like I said, at the end of the day, we want to entertain our audiences. And we want to present items that are entertaining and that can, for a dancer, creatively challenge me. So it's that fine balance between tradition and innovation.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to give a very, very quick, because I know we're at time and over time, but that's what I'm trying to do on the 28th of February. And it's my first solo in 17 years. I have been performing in many group productions over the years with Dr. Chandrabanu, but after 17 years, I'm taking to the stage as a solo item, as a solo, what I said, margam, but it's not a traditional margam. The idea is that I want to convey stories. I want to convey the most famous stories in our Puranas and Itihasas, and there will be the Ramayana, there will be stories from the Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, and I want people to see these stories and understand these stories and appreciate the art form at the same time. So if you're in Melbourne on the 28th of February, please do take out your phones. You can scan the QR code and you can book tickets. It's my way of giving back to the heritage and the culture and the stories that have kept my imagination alive. And these are the stories that I tell on the Katha project. They're not, they are stories that we all know so deeply and have been told by our mothers and grandmothers for many, many years. And it's just a different way of expressing them. We read them in the Amar Chitra Kathas, we hear them on a podcast like the Katha Project, and then now we see them on stage as a Bharatanatyam performance. So if you are able to, please do come along. I would be so grateful if these stories can be appreciated through this art form to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I'll share these details on the WhatsApp group as well for everybody to sign up for this event.
Any plans of doing it in Sydney?
Oh gosh, we'll see. We have an international vocalist coming, so the logistics of getting an entire live orchestra, it is a live orchestra performance and it's a 3-hour show. So in getting an entire orchestra from, an international orchestra to Sydney is definitely difficult, but who knows? Once I have music, recorded music, maybe I can bring parts of the show to Sydney. Definitely.
Yeah,
Or as a
sure.
gesture, Ankit, you can book a ticket to come Melbourne.
Yeah, come to Melbourne for a weekend.
Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, definitely.
I have a question, Gayatri ji. I'm conscious of time and it's our time. We can take extra time if you're comfortable letting us ask question. And that's not an issue. We are all committed people on this call, remaining people. My question is that is it true or it's a misconception that women or girls are more natural versus men? I believe these skills need to be taught more to men. They're missing the expression and emotion. Only expression and emotion they know is anger.
No, you're right. You know what? It is performed more by women. Let's not cover up the data here. It is performed more by women. Why is that? Is it because it was rooted as a Devadashi in from the Devadashi tradition? Maybe. Is it true that, most of the pieces are from the point of view of a female Nike or a female heroine? So it's easier for a female to get up and perform and slip into those characters. But is it impossible for a male dancer? No, I don't think so. My guru is a male himself. There are so many male dancers who continue this art form. And I think it's definitely possible. Now, what you said about boys needing the ability to express these emotions, I 100% agree. And in fact, this is a great way for boys to actually channel that excess energy and be able to, boys are naturally have that physicality about them. They don't have to get up and do a love story. They don't have to do that. But learn the adavus, understand your body more, understand the rhythm and understand how your body moves to that rhythm in a very structured way. Maybe they don't go and learn a padam or a javali, but they can definitely learn the adavus. And who says they can't learn the padam and javali? Of course they can. It's a challenge. They have to slip into a female character a lot of the times, but so be it. And when you get to the Natya side of things, and you get to doing, dances that convey the Ramayana, it's predominantly male characters. When I dance this show, I will predominantly be conveying male characters, not female characters. So if a female can slip into a male character, why cannot a male slip into a female character? It's 100% possible.
Lighter note question that does Karnataka have any roots of Bharatanatyam? The Nataka term in the name, does it roots to the Natya part of it, or it's just a common traditional language named Karnataka?
Karnataka, I don't know if it goes back to Carnatic. I think that's just a lovely coincidence because Carnatic music and Bharatanatyam are usually, well, I mean, back in the many, many years ago, there was no, when the Natya Shastra was written, it was, there was no Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, but predominantly came from the south of India, that entire region. But unfortunately, I don't know the etymology of Karnataka, but that's definitely a good question.
I had one more. Yeah, last question is this Natrajan that statue you have, and right from the first slide, what is the expression on that pose? What is it trying to convey?
Great question. So the Nataraja pose is central to understanding. The Nataraja is doing the cosmic dance, and that cosmic dance is the dance of creation and destruction.
At the same
And
time,
at, at, at the same time, creation and destruction. It is said that with that dance he creates, and with that dance he destructs, he destroys. And what does he create? He creates goodness. He creates he creates everything that is there in this world. And what is it that he destroys? He destroys our ego. He destroys our all the lowly emotions that we may feel, our attachments. And it is said that with his foot that is on the ground, he's actually, and I'll go to the next slide because you can see the picture a little bit more clearly. You can see his right leg is actually on, it looks like a person or a human, and that's actually a Rakshasa. And that Rakshasa or that Asura represents all of those low qualities, our ego, our attachments to the materialistic world. And so Nataraja with his dance is saying that we are destroying that and he is suppressing that. And with his foot lifted is it's representing his detachment from all of those low qualities. And with one hand, he's blessing, and the other hand, he's actually pointing to that foot that is detached. And with that cosmic dance, he creates and he destroys. And in his other hand, he actually has the damaru. The damaru is that little drum, which is the beat. And it says that that is the sound of the cosmos and the cosmic energy itself.
Thank you so much. Very well explained. I had one more last question, but I totally forget about it. I'll ask you offline maybe.
No problem.
Any final question from the audience before we wrap up?
No.
All good. Thank you so much, Gayatri ji, for explaining us this very complex topic. And if you don't mind, I remembered my question.
Yeah,
So I will
please.
interrupt. The question is, whatever rishis they write about any subject, so it's about this the Rishi Bharata wrote about this. They write about those navrasa, then navrasa should be building block of any expression possible by a human being. That means I don't, or maybe you can acknowledge the same fact that this navrasa should be able to express any possible emotions and expression in the world in any dance form, basically with those founding building block capabilities, basically.
Yes, absolutely. And those navarasas are the nine basic human emotions. And Rishi Bharatan, if just going back to that, think of humility, is that back in those days, 2000 years ago, he has done that study of human emotions and he's observed so many thousands of people probably and has said, oh, everything that people feel actually comes down to these nine emotions. There's so many researchers these days that do their PhDs and all of that existed. That deep research into human psychology existed thousands of years ago in back in the Vedic times. Right? And he was able to convey that so succinctly as you think of, oh, the human emotions are endless, but really they all root from these nine.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So with that note, those who are watching it on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share. Please do attend the live solo performance by Gayathri ji in Melbourne on 28th of February. I'll share details on WhatsApp group. And extremely grateful to you, Gayatri ji, for sharing this complex idea in very simple terms. And now, thank you that wherever we'll go to watch any such presentation next, the live performance, we will appreciate it much better because with this foundational knowledge, we will look for those expressions and rhythms and connections and everything. And thank you for inspiring Gen Alpha. It's a bit of challenge that they want everything in 5 minutes or 45 seconds and all, but we need to build that. As a parent, it's our duty and responsibility to pass the importance and imbibe those knowledge back to our next generation. So thank you so much for taking time to refresh that memory, refresh that wisdom of our ancient times to next generation. I'm sure for years people will watch these videos and learn and appreciate and take an inspiration from you to take a next step for the kids as well as grown-ups or adults as well if they want to appreciate and learn those emotions and navrasas. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to see you in your live performance and see you again for any future webinars from you.
Thank you, Suriji. Thanks you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for staying too late and enjoying this webinar live. Thank you. With that note, good night. Namaste. Bye.